Today's episode of Passionate Talk is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audio download and 30-day free trial at books.passionatetalk.com. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Get your 30-day free trial and free audiobook at books.passionatetalk.com. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Passionate Talk. I am your host, Gary Karp, and this is episode number 25. Today is the second part of my interview with two-time two-sport para-Olympian James Roberts. Today, James and I are going to be talking a little bit about New Year's resolutions and why they don't work. He's going to give us tips on self-reflection and how to motivate ourselves to get to our goals. We're going to speak a little bit about sports psychology and how he uses sports psychology to help his clients achieve their health goals. And James will also tell us how he works with his clients to help them achieve and what he believes those best practices are. So right now, I want you to sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, maybe some tea, and get ready to listen to my interview with James. I can definitely understand and appreciate what you're saying. So many people, especially around New Year's resolutions, and New Year's resolutions don't work because we check in on New Year's resolutions usually about once a year around Thanksgiving here in the States. You know, it's around November when we start to go, oh yeah, I said I was going to lose all this weight and I was going to get healthy and fit. My own personal journey is starting in January. I started to think a little bit differently about food, and not necessarily saying I needed to lose weight, but changing the relationship that I had with my body and changing the relationship that I had with the food that I was eating. I started looking at it as fuel. And since then, I have lost 55 pounds and 6 inches off my waist. And when people ask me, how did you do it? What diet did you do? I tell them I didn't use a diet. I changed my relationship with food. And that goes back to you talking about reflection and really deeply thinking about what you want and who you are. So do you have any tips on how people can reflect? What is your process of reflection when you want to try to make that breakthrough and become a better person?
Well, I think the easiest one, Gary, would be looking at your day, well, kind of charting your day at the end of it, be it what went well, what didn't go so well, and you kind of reflect in that way. And that's probably the easiest tool to implement straight away.
And that is one of the reasons journaling is so important, because it's a way of putting down your thoughts on paper so you can look at them and reflect upon them. And you also have a daily status of what you were thinking and how you were feeling and what you physically were like, your weight, your body mass index, or whatever it is that you're tracking. Do you keep a journal?
I know I should do, but I think with me, because it was so structured, be it my sporting life, I think it's maybe in my subconscious to a certain extent. Yes, I probably from say the calls I have to make to people, checking up on clients, obviously recording podcasts, there's that element of time management, so possibly, but in terms of journaling, not really. I think the big one in terms of the right now within fitness is obviously mindfulness. I think lots of people
Absolutely.
are very much, what would be the term that somebody's used with me? They think it's all about the spirituality of the thing. Okay, yeah, that is one component of it. You don't have to go to those extents. I've talked to one guest, John Amici, who's very famous basketball player over here and has gone to the heights of the NBA, but is a psychologist now, and he talked about probably picking and choosing elements that suit you and your lifestyle and making them very much functional. And I think I'm very much similar to that. I'll kind of, you could put it in an essence, it's like a bookshelf. I'm picking off books that I want to read, and it's very much that is kind of how I see mindfulness and mindset. And I think maybe because I had that background in sports psychology, I've maybe got that inside knowledge to be able to say, well, there is that overlap between the three, because in all honesty, sports psychology is only probably a sport component of psychology. It's what's implemented into a sporting scenario, and that's it. And I probably utilize that a little bit more because it resonates with me, and be it if it is an athlete that I'm working with, they probably could comprehend it a little bit better because you're putting it in a sporting context.
So mindfulness, I agree with you, is extremely important. That's what I teach to all my clients and in my workshops, is how to be more mindful, more present, and staying in this moment. And as I say, the ever-present, infinite moment of now, and this moment, and this moment, and this moment, because that's all there is. I find that stress and anxiety and fear come from when we start to relive the past and remember all the things we screwed up, or we start to live in the future and we worry about how we're going to accomplish things. But if we stay in the present moment of now, which is the only thing we can control, we tend to have a better mindset on moving forward. So can you talk to us a little bit about what really sports psychology is and how mindfulness plays a role in that?
Well, I think we were probably the first to acknowledge that it's a part of maybe that psyche that you've got, because in an essence, it's that 1% upstairs being your brain is the difference between winning and losing at elite level. And I probably asked that of a few guests I had sport wise more recently. And I think as you go down the pedestal, I think that percentage gets a bit even greater. So it's very much of importance, because it's probably sets you up. If we talk about like the living in the moment now, it teaches you habits, because that's what it is. And we kind of go back to what you were talking about in terms of people asking about diet. Well, that word in itself has been manipulated by media, because it doesn't have the same meaning now as it did probably, I don't know, 60 years ago. A diet is what you normally eat on a day-to-day basis. It's not a change, which it is. What is the meaning of it now?
Exactly.
But I think to answer your question in terms of sports psychology, I think it's very much similar to mindfulness in all honesty, Gary, because it's the only difference being it's put in a sporting context. And okay, if you touched upon stress and anxiety, or it's just a different form of it. It's dealing with stress and anxiety in a competitive environment. That's all it, and be it training. But in all honesty, you could relate it back into everyday life because it's the same thing.
So share with us a story of a client that you worked with in a sports psychology setting that turned out to be a success, and how you got that athlete to break through their limiting beliefs, and what you did with them, how you worked with them.
I think it's instilling with them. I think everybody wants this quick fix, and okay, that may be a generalization, but it's probably true. But it's probably breaking them down to a certain extent and saying, well, yes, you want to get this now. However, we could do it in, say, I think the good one would be 30 days of improvement. But am I actually helping you in the long run? Probably not, because can you sustain all these changes long into the future? Probably not. I think the greatest quote in terms of that, I think takes you 66 days to instill a habit. So what have I done by helping you improve yourself in 30 days? Not very much, because probably in most cases you might be able to keep one of those changes that we've instilled, but what about the other ones? So it's probably breaking it down, Gary, in terms of maybe taking one at a time, and it's very much that day-to-day basis. Get one right, move to the next task, and kind of looking at those, and probably I think we maybe focus too much on the aesthetical appearance of somebody. Obviously, looking at maybe we talked about it a little bit with the diet. We focus too much on those things, but I think it comes back to looking at maybe that changing the person's perceptions and mental approach to, be it how they exercise, how they eat. So I think the one that is paramount is the mental aspect of it, because if we can get you to look at things in terms of a lifestyle change and looking at changing things as a habit, I've helped you in a greater sense, because you the next person down the line may not work with me, but you could help them. So I think instilling those kind of, you could say, values or way of thinking, I think you can help a greater perspective within the community, because you are giving that person that you work with the tools to be able to help, I don't know, say the next 5 people, and so on and so on. That will multiply probably, what was that, maybe tenfold, or if even not more. So you've maybe not directly helped them, but indirectly you've helped loads and loads of people, but just by teaching those, I would call them simple principles.
So if someone is sitting here and they're listening to the podcast and they're trying to be more mindful, they're trying to look at things in a more holistic approach and not think 30 or 60 days down the road, but really look a lifetime down the road, what advice would you give to that person?
Well, I think it comes back to that why. Why do you want to? I think obviously the big one is weight loss, but what is the reason behind it? It's probably, and that's obviously a mindset thing straight away. It's questioning, why do you actually want to do something, and probably I think it's using those 3 quotes: why, how, and what. So how are you going to go about doing it, and what tools are you going to use? It's using those tools to question why you actually want to do something. So it comes back to reflection big time, because you need to comprehend, well, why do I actually want to do something? And I think it's kind of goes deeper than in most cases we've looked in, probably over the last, I would say, probably 10 years or so, when we've looked at, well, we'll just help you from a dietary sense and a fitness sense, but we don't help you instill those habits and things. But because I could give you, for example, a nutrition plan to do for the next 30 days. You obviously you're going to instill that for 30 days, but what happens when you go back to what you're eating normally? It's probably that onus. You're going to say, well, I haven't done my job properly. Well, really, I have. You've said for me to give you this plan, but we haven't looked deep enough to say, well, what other steps have you put in place to kind of help you going down the road? Be it drinking more water, having more fiber in your diet. Like the little things that can make a big difference in the long run.
I think that understanding your why is really the key to anything. And I've become a real big fan of Simon Sinek, who wrote a book called The Power of Why, where he explains that you could have all the tools in the world and know intellectually how to do all the things and all the processes, but until you decide and define and understand really what your why is, you're not going to accomplish anything. When you know your why, everything becomes easier. I'll use that word, and that's a dangerous word to use, but I'm going to use it in this context because there are going to be times, and let's take weight loss because we're talking about that here, and let's take New Year's resolutions, and people will look in the mirror and they'll say, oh my God, I got to lose weight. But they don't do the work behind that to understand why they need to lose weight, because they want to look better, or they want to feel better, or they want to get a beach body, or whatever it is. So they start the diet, and eventually there's going to come a time when you're going to hit a wall. And when you hit that wall, or more correctly, when that wall hits us, because it always feels that way, how are you going to respond? Most people are going to sit there and go, well, I gave it my best shot, peace out, and they're going to give up. which is why the gyms are always, always crowded in January. Yet the closer you get to March, they empty out. Other people are just going to redouble their efforts and they're going to work harder. So instead of going to the gym 3 times a week, they're going to go to the gym 5 times a week. And pretty soon, they're not going to see the results. They're not going to know their why, and they're going to end up in that first group, and they're also going to give up. But when you understand your why, when you take the time to reflect on why it's important to you to lose the weight, or why it's important to you to have this business, or why it's important to you to date that guy or that gal, and you know it, and it becomes anchored in your nervous system. And the only way that happens, as you said, is that self-reflection, becoming so intimate and so passionate about why you're doing things. When that happens, you don't stop. You don't have to think about using willpower. Because the problem with using willpower, I find, is that you got to think to use it. When you understand your why, you're consistently pulled towards that goal. So that self-reflection, folks, that understanding of your why is the single most important thing, in my opinion, that you can do to achieve any goal, to continue to grow, and to have success in your life.
I think in terms of, you say the 3 to 5, going from 3 to 5 days of training, it's maybe looking at maybe asking somebody with a bit more knowledge as to what can I tweak in terms of that to continue on that progress route. So it's being open and open-minded to be willing to ask question of, say, I don't know, personal trainer, a friend that's more experienced in the gym, as to, I've hit this wall, I'm doing, I don't know, you'd probably say I think most people have that assumption of, I do loads and loads of cardio, I'm going to lose weight. Okay, that's very dependent on how much weight you've got to lose, and what stage you are in terms of that journey, because there's going to come a point where that's not going to work. So it's being not afraid to ask somebody that has more knowledge than you how you can be helped, and be it. I think I'm very much it. I'm quite happy to, if you've got a question to ask of me, I'll answer it.
And that is so important, being able to ask someone and being open to receive that knowledge and share. I know when I started on my journey of weight loss, I hit a plateau. I went from 190 some odd pounds down to 168. My goal was somewhere around 145, and I couldn't get past that 168 pounds. And I started to talk to people that were more knowledgeable in it. And through speaking with them, I changed my diet up. I became a vegan. I changed my exercise routine up. Instead of doing one set of exercises or some set of exercises, I totally changed what I did. And over the next 2 months or so, I had lost all that weight. But then I had the opposite thing happen. I hit my goal of 145, and I was very proud, but then my weight kept dropping. And no matter how much more exercise I would do and how much more I would eat, I was down to 130 pounds before I knew it. And so I went back to my friends who are fitness coaches, who are health conscious, who are more knowledgeable than I am. And I explained what I was doing, and I explained where I was, and they looked at me and they said, you need to up your protein intake. And I went, well, wait a second here. Why do I need to up my protein intake? And they explained to me that because I was vegan, I needed to take in more protein and get protein in a different way, through plants, through grains, and change my exercise routine to focus on certain groups of muscles that would build my protein up. And by listening to them, I actually put back on the 15 pounds and currently at the goal weight. So it is important to keep growing, to keep asking questions of people who are more knowledgeable of you. And right now, I really wish that this podcast was a live podcast, because I would love to have some of our listeners call in and ask you questions. Unfortunately, this is a canned interview, but I'm sure that if people want to reach out to you, they can. So right now, James, why don't you let people know exactly what you do, how they can get in touch with you, and a little bit about your services.
Well, Gary, I'm an online training and nutrition coach. Probably the easiest way to get in contact would be my website, which is fitamputee.com. fitness.co.uk, which would be FITAMPUTEE.co.uk. And obviously within that there is a contact sheet to get in touch with me, and obviously we could go from there. I'm on social media, be it Facebook, Twitter is probably one of the easiest ones, and if you did have questions to ask, I'd do my utmost to be able to answer there or then. If I didn't know the answer, I'd go to probably I could call it a network now, because with having my podcast now, the Mindset Game, I've reached out to other fitness professionals. So if I don't know the answer and it's within their realms, I probably could get an answer probably back to you quicker than, I won't say most, but maybe then that normal realm of the 24 to 48 hours, which you normally see when you've asked a question of a fitness professional.
So tell everybody your Twitter handle right now so they can hear it and they can check you out on Twitter and maybe drop you a line and ask you a question over on Twitter.
The Twitter handle is at James O. Roberts 11, so that's JAMES O Roberts, which is ROBERTS 11.
And you mentioned a podcast. Why don't you tell people how they can get in touch with you or how they can listen to the podcast, and also what they could expect to hear in that podcast if they're interested in increasing their health and their fitness?
The podcast is available on Stitcher, iTunes, through my website, and then probably multiple outlets, be it from wherever podcasts are found. So there's probably like hundreds of them now. But what it covers, Gary, to answer your question, it's a bi-weekly show where I look to interview people from fitness, nutrition, psychology, and sport. So it's very much probably an insight into why they got into that profession, and kind of giving you tips and tricks in terms of, be it, I think the biggest one at the moment is that I've recorded recently is to do with adversity and kind of how an athlete goes about overcoming it. So it's similar in essence, similar to this show. Tips you could do it in terms of mindset. I think there's an element of value within every show. Okay, it's not going to resonate with everybody, but I think you could probably you would maybe not have to listen to it into its entirety, but I think you would gain something of value in each episode.
So, folks, if you have any questions that you want to know about, that you want answers to, drop James a private message over on Twitter. Head on over to his website so you can listen to his podcast, and he drops truth nuggets on health and fitness and general well-being that I know I am going to, once we get done here, head on over and subscribe to that, because even though I did lose all that weight, there's still work to be done. I really got to tighten my abs up here, but I hate crunches. So I need to find a different way of doing that and bringing those stomach muscles in. Don't want a six-pack, don't want a washboard. I just want it to be a little bit tighter. So I'm definitely going to be subscribing to that webcast right now. And just to make sure, James, you don't only work with disabled people, but you work with able people as well, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And finally, one last piece of advice or anything you want to leave our listeners with today that they can take and implement right now to get a move on increasing their health and fitness. What's the one thing they can do right now to improve the quality of the fitness in their life?
I think we touched upon it in the episode. I think it's living in the moment, because you have no control of what's happened in the past, and you can't control what's going to happen in the future. If you kind of look at it living in the now, yes, you can probably shape what's going to happen in the future, and if you focus on now, you have a better outlook of what's going to happen in the future, and there's no point dwelling on the fact of what you previously did in the past, because you can't change that. And I think it's when we look to maybe change things in the future, well, it's you've got no control. You've got no control of those, either past or future. It's I think it's very much paramount that you focus on the now, because it's controllable.
Absolutely. That is great advice, whether you're looking to improve your fitness, whether you're looking to improve the quality of your life, even if you're looking to move forward in whatever job that you have or whatever career that you have. Don't dwell on the mistakes you may have made in the past, and don't worry about who's going to get the promotion. Just focus on the now, the moment that you're in, and the little incremental improvements that you can make every single day to put yourself in a position to take advantage of the opportunities when they come along. Now, James, I want to thank you for joining us today. This has been a wonderful, wonderful interview, or I should say this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And I do truly appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks again, Gary, for having me on.
Thanks, James. We'll talk with you later. That was a great interview with James. As you can tell, he is far more than just a health coach, far more than just a fitness coach. He truly believes in helping his clients holistically, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. The truth nuggets that he dropped on us about self-reflection and using that to drive yourself forward, and using the tools of questions, the questions of why, how, and what, to understand your whys, which is so important for us to reach our goals and really do anything in life. I found this conversation to be invaluable in helping me move forward for my goals as we approach 2018. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for this episode of Passionate Talk. So until next week, follow your dreams and passions and manifest the life that you choose. Hey folks, it's Gary. If you'd like to get your free copy of Simon Sinek's Start With Why, then head on over to books.passionatetalk.com and start your 30-day free trial with audible.com. Audible.com has over 180,000 titles to choose from, and you can pick up your free copy of Start With Why by Simon Sinek by heading on over to books.passionatetalk.com and start your free trial today.